Police cuffed her over a passenger complaint. Then the control card exposed what they had interrupted. At a charging column near Gate B26, a gate agent types a single word into a security note and hesitates before pressing enter. Suspicious. She has not spoken to the woman she is describing. She is only repeating what a passenger in the priority line told her 30 seconds earlier. 20 feet away, a black woman in a plain gray jacket sits cross-legged on the floor beside an outlet, an old backpack between her knees, her eyes moving carefully, patiently, between two men who have not once looked at each other. She is not people watching, she is working. Her name, for the purposes of this flight, does not matter. What matters is the boarding call 16 minutes away, and the two men she has been assigned to watch board that plane without incident. If airport police walk over now, if radios start talking, if either man so much as glances toward a uniform, 3 weeks of federal work could unravel in under a minute. She cannot explain any of this to the gate agent. She cannot explain it to security either. All she can do is sit still, keep her hands visible, and hope the boarding call comes before anyone else does. It does not. Her name is Special Agent Yolanda Marsh, 41 years old. Homeland Security Investigations, 3 weeks into a joint federal task force called Operation Lantern Chain, an effort to trace a forced labor recruitment pipeline moving false identity documents through a handful of international gates just like this one. Her assignment tonight is simple on paper and delicate in practice. Observe 2 suspected couriers, let them board their flight, and allow officers on the other end to follow the documents to the people running the network. She is not supposed to make contact. She is not supposed to be noticed at all. She is dressed the way she always dresses on assignment. Plain jacket, scuffed sneakers, a backpack that looks like every other backpack in the terminal, except for the locked case inside it that does not belong to her personally and was never meant to be opened by anyone without a phone call first. 40 minutes earlier, a technology executive named Grant Whitlock had settled into the priority line with an espresso in one hand and his laptop bag slung over one shoulder. And he had noticed her, not doing anything, just sitting, just watching the gate the way she was trained to watch it. He noticed it 3 times in 10 minutes. By the 4th time, he had convinced himself it meant something. She keeps watching us, he told the gate agent, a young woman named Mara Lindqvist working her 2nd month at the podium. I don't know. Something about her feels off. Can someone check on her? Mara did not ask him what specifically he had seen. She did not walk over to the woman on the floor and ask a single question. Instead, she opened the incident system and typed what felt true rather than what she actually knew. A note describing a woman watching premium passengers and making travelers uncomfortable. Language that sounded procedural and meant almost nothing at all. She pressed send, and the note left her hands and became something else entirely. An official record, waiting to be read by someone with a badge and no context. Yolanda did not know the note existed yet, but she felt something shift in the terminal. A change in the way the gate agent kept glancing toward the radio, the particular stillness of a normal night about to stop being normal. Near the window seating, the 2 men she had been watching for 3 weeks shifted almost imperceptibly. One checked the departure monitor a beat after the other did. A small, synchronized motion that meant nothing to anyone but her. She had learned their patterns the way she learned everyone's patterns. Patiently, from a distance, without ever letting them learn hers. 12 minutes before boarding, 2 airport police officers came around the corner from the security office, and the taller one had a printed copy of Mara's note already in his hand. His name was Officer Roy Denton, 6 years on the force, the kind of officer who read a report and treated its language as though it had already been proven in court. He and his partner had been dispatched with the approval of Grant Whitlock, the shift lieutenant who signed off on every passenger contact escalation at that terminal. His partner, a younger officer named Malik Osi, 2 years in, walked half a step behind him, saying nothing yet. Denton stopped in front of Yolanda and looked down at her sitting on the floor. "Ma'am, I need you to stand up." She stood, slowly keeping her hands where he could see them, aware that every second of this conversation was a second the 2 men by the window could notice. "Can I ask what this is about, officer? You tell me. Why are you sitting on the floor watching that section of the gate?" "I'm a passenger," she said. "I like this spot. I haven't approached anyone or touched anyone's belongings." He asked for identification. She handed him a valid government-issued ID and a boarding pass showing a confirmed business class seat on the same flight the 2 men were holding tickets for. He studied the boarding pass longer than he needed to, glancing between the seat class and her backpack, her sneakers, the frayed strap over her shoulder. "This doesn't look like a business class bag," he said. "How'd you get this seat?" "I bought it," she said evenly. "Is there a problem with my documents?" There was not, and he did not answer the question. He asked another one instead. "What's in the bag?" "Personal items." "I'd rather not open it here." "That's not really your call, ma'am. It's my bag, and it's in my possession. It's not unattended, and I haven't given consent for a search. I'm happy to answer reasonable questions, and I'd like a supervisor present if this continues." Officer Denton's jaw tightened, and he said the word that would matter more than almost anything else said that night. "So you're refusing to cooperate?" "I'm declining a search I haven't consented to." "That's not the same thing." He did not seem to hear the distinction, or did not want to. He reached for her arm. She did not pull away. She let him turn it, kept her palm open, said again quietly that she was not resisting. Officer Osei, standing slightly behind, finally reached for the small camera clipped to his vest and pressed it on. Late, well after the first command, well after the first hand had already made contact, but on. Denton walked her toward the gate partition, cuffed her wrists in front of her, and pulled the backpack off her shoulder in the same motion. Across the gate area, one of the two men by the window folded a boarding pass receipt in half. A small gesture that meant nothing to the gate agent, typing at her podium, and meant everything to Yolanda. It meant he had noticed the officers, and he was deciding whether to run. He did not run. He simply turned back toward the window and waited, the way someone waits when they believe they have not yet been connected to anything. Boarding began 4 minutes later, and Yolanda, cuffed, escorted through a side door toward the airport police substation, watched the departure monitor switch from boarding to final call, through a narrow strip of glass, and lost sight of the gate entirely before the doors closed behind her. She did not know, in that moment, whether either man had boarded the flight. She would not know for hours. The substation holding room held a metal chair, a wall-mounted phone, a property tub, and a camera in the corner that had been running the entire time. Unlike the one on Officer Osei's vest, it had never needed to be switched on. Denton set the backpack on the counter and began going through it before any supervisor had arrived, pulling out a phone charger, a paperback book, a half-empty water bottle. Ordinary things that told him nothing. Then his hand closed around a hard-sided case, gray, unmarked, secured with a small electronic seal and a clear plastic sleeve holding a printed card. "What's this?" "Read the card before you touch the latch," Yolanda said, still cuffed, her voice controlled but urgent for the first time all night. "There's a number on it. Call it before anyone opens that case. It isn't mine to open, and neither is it yours." Denton hesitated, thumb resting on the latch, close enough that Osei stepped forward without quite knowing why. "Read the card," Yolanda said again. "Please." Osei picked it up first. "Federal property," it read, followed by a control number, HSI 7734 Delta, and a single instruction in bold text. "Do not open contact operations before any access, chain of custody applies." He looked at Denton, then at the wall phone, then dialed the number printed beneath the instruction. The call was answered on the second ring by a duty officer at Homeland Security Investigations operations, who asked 3 questions before anything else. "Has the case been opened? Is the agent restrained? Is the equipment still under direct observation?" Osei answered honestly. "Not opened. Yes, restrained. Yes, still in the room." And the voice on the other end told him to stay exactly where he was and touch nothing further. Within 40 minutes, a woman in a plain blazer walked into the substation and introduced herself simply as Supervisory Special Agent Bernice Whitfield. She had been running a temporary command post inside the same terminal all night, since Operation Lantern Chain involved coordinated observation posts at 3 separate gates, which was why she could reach the substation in minutes rather than hours, and why she did not raise her voice once. Her first questions were not about blame. "Is Agent Marsh injured? Has the case been opened? Has the seal been broken? I need everyone in this room to stay until I've spoken with each of you separately." She photographed the red marks on Yolanda's wrists before the cuffs were even fully removed. She sealed the equipment case herself, checked the tamper indicator, and confirmed it had not been triggered. Then she asked the question that mattered most. Did the flight leave on time? It had. Whether either target had boarded was still unconfirmed. For the next several hours, Yolanda sat in a borrowed office reviewing gate camera footage frame by frame. watching her own detention from a wide angle while trying to determine whether the two men she had spent 3 weeks tracking were now somewhere over open water or somewhere back in the terminal. They had boarded, both of them, 4 minutes before the door closed, the second man boarding almost as an afterthought, unhurried, apparently unaware that anything unusual had happened at all. Officers on the other end were waiting when the flight landed, briefed and in position regardless of what had happened at the gate, because the plan had never depended on any single officer's presence to succeed. Both couriers were arrested on arrival, along with a third contact neither of them had been expected to meet, a lead the destination team would not have found without the two men Yolanda had spent 3 weeks watching. Not everything survived intact. A second contact the network had been expected to meet the following week never appeared. Whether from the delay at the gate, a missed signal, or simple caution, investigators could not say for certain, and one thread of the network went quiet for good. Some intelligence was lost, some was not. Back at the airport's shift lieutenant, a man named Grant Whitlock, suggested treating the entire incident as an internal misunderstanding, a same-day administrative review, a quiet correction to the note. No need to involve federal civil rights investigators or disrupt operations any further. Agent Whitfield declined. This stopped being a misunderstanding the moment an officer detained a federal agent without a single specific action to justify it, she said. That's not an identity problem. That's a procedure problem, and it doesn't go away because the person in cuffs turned out to work for the government. The investigation that followed moved slowly and methodically through a full evidence timeline. It included the original passenger complaint, Mara Lindqvist's gate note, the dispatch call, Officer Denton's arrival, the first command, the first physical contact, the late activation timestamp on Officer OC's body camera, airport surveillance from 3 separate angles, a passenger's cell phone video, the search room access log, and the verification call itself. Each piece was placed beside the others until the sequence could no longer be disputed. Investigators interviewed Grant Whitlock directly and asked him, more than once, what specific action the woman had taken. He described looking. He described a feeling. He could not describe a threat, a contact, an attempted theft, or anything resembling conduct that would justify police involvement at all. Mara Lindqvist, once she understood what her note had triggered, asked to submit a supplemental statement clarifying that she had not personally observed anything alarming. Investigators accepted the supplement, but the original note stayed in the file exactly as written, because a correction is not the same as an erasure, and both mattered to what happened next. Officer OC, interviewed separately, did not try to minimize his role. I knew the note didn't describe any actual conduct, he said. I saw the bag was in her hands the whole time, not sitting somewhere unattended. I should have said something before it went as far as it did. I turned my camera on too late, and that's on me. His honesty mattered to the final review, but it did not erase the late activation, or his part in the handcuffing, or the fact that he had followed an order he already doubted. He was suspended pending retraining, placed under a formal duty to intervene requirement for the remainder of his probationary period, and required to testify in the administrative hearing that followed. Officer Denton's findings were more severe: detention without specific conduct, misapplication of the airport's unattended property policy to a bag that had never left the agent's possession, an attempted search without consent or supervisory approval, a body camera failure he had never corrected in over a year of warnings about the same issue, and a formal finding that he had mischaracterized a lawful refusal to consent as resistance in his own written report. He was removed from passenger contact duty immediately and suspended. After a formal hearing where he was represented by counsel and given the opportunity to respond to the full evidence timeline, he was terminated for cause. A separate state certification review would determine whether he could ever hold a badge again, while civil proceedings continued independently. Investigators widened their review and pulled 2 years of incident logs alongside a sample of comparable boarding pass classes. Analysts cross-referenced complaint records against seat manifests and found that vague passenger discomfort complaints disproportionately triggered police contact for travelers of color. They also found that premium cabin staff applied different scrutiny to passengers holding the same seat class, and that refusal to consent had been logged as resistance in at least a dozen incident reports during the same period. One earlier case stood out. 14 months before Yolanda's detention, An attorney named Devin Achibi had been stopped near the same terminal's executive lounge after another traveler complained that he didn't seem like he belonged there, searched without cause, and released only after missing his connecting flight and the meeting it had been booked for. His complaint had gone nowhere at the time, filed and quietly closed as a customer service matter rather than a civil rights concern. It was reopened as part of the broader review, and this time it did not stay buried. The airport authority, under a formal consent agreement with federal civil rights investigators, adopted a new protocol within 3 months. Police contact could no longer be initiated from a passenger discomfort complaint alone, without a specific described action attached to it. Gate incident forms were redesigned to separate a passenger's stated complaint from an employee's direct observation, so the two could never again be blended into a single unverified note. The phrase, "looks suspicious," unaccompanied by any described conduct, was removed from the incident system entirely. Refusing consent to a search was formally reclassified in training materials as a protected right, never to be logged as resistance on its own. Body camera activation was now required before the first verbal command in any contact escalation, not after the first physical one. Property in a traveler's direct possession could no longer be treated as unattended for search purposes, and a supervisor's approval was required before any bag actively held by a traveler could be opened. A protected channel for junior officers and gate staff to report concerns about an escalating stop was created, with explicit protection against retaliation. And when any case, container, or device carrying a federal control card appeared during a search, the new protocol required exactly one action before anything else. Read the card, make the call, wait. The card itself, laminated now, was clipped behind every gate podium in the terminal within the month. Yolanda declined the interviews that came looking for her afterward. She did not want her name on the reform order, and mostly, it was not. The policy existed to protect the next traveler sitting on a terminal floor with an ordinary-looking bag, not to commemorate the one time it failed. What mattered to her was smaller and more specific, that a refusal to consent would never again be written down as resistance, that a camera would come on before a hand did, that a case like the one still resting, undamaged, in an evidence locker somewhere would never again depend on a stranger's patience to stay closed. Weeks later, at a different gate in the same terminal, a young gate agent took a complaint about a passenger who seemed off, paused before typing anything into the system, and asked the man standing in front of her a single question first. What exactly did she do? He could not answer. She did not write the note. The bent zipper tag on Yolanda's backpack was never replaced. She kept it that way, a small crooked reminder clipped to a strap she still carried on assignment, proof that the most dangerous part of that night was never one officer misreading one traveler. It was a sequence, discomfort becoming suspicion, suspicion becoming official language, and official language becoming force, all of it moving forward one careless step at a time before anyone stopped to ask what had actually happened. This is a fictional story created for storytelling purposes.